Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to the Dyslexic Reader. Today we are doing the Nosy Librarian Tag. I saw this on Steve Donahue's channel, so I'll link his video down below, and I'll also go back and hunt down the original creator and I'll link their channel and video down below as well. I just want to get stuck into this and fly through it. Question number 1. What has been the most influential library in your life? Well, as a young child, my parents lived in a town called Dromore when I was kind of reading age up until teens, and I did enjoy going to that local library, especially with my grandfather. He took me sometimes, but to be honest with you, I got just as many videos out as I did video cassettes out as I did books. So although I did enjoy going there and I have good memories there, and I definitely had a couple of books, I was one of those children who got the same books out constantly. Like, I'd got it out and returned it and then would get something else and then I'd go back to the first one again. I got the same books over and over again, mostly just picture books that didn't really have any impact and a lot of videos. When I moved to high school, I did spend a lot of time in my high school library and really enjoyed it, but I don't remember getting many books out and taking them home. I just spent a lot of time like in the library. But now my local library now is really influential. I'm there every week. I read the majority of my books from my local library, and like I have a nice relationship with the librarians and stuff. I kind of know them to see and ask questions and things. So definitely now I would say my local library is a bigger part of my life than any library has been previously. Number 2, what will I title your biography? And this one was a hard one for me. I think it depends what kind of aspect you focus on my life. But I think if we were looking at careers and hobbies kind of aspects, I think the Dyslexic Reader would be as good a title as any. If you're to focus on more of my family and personal life, I'm not quite sure what it would be entitled, but I think if it was like a kind of hobbies, careers book, definitely the Dyslexic Reader would be an easy one to go for. Number 3, from the story from your life that you wouldn't want your librarian to find out. There's lots of stories that I wouldn't necessarily want my librarian to know, but then I wouldn't want most people to know those stories. But I guess one that I'm happy with telling you guys is that when I grew up and moved out of my parents' house and was going through obviously all my stuff to move, I did find a lot of school books from recently and also not so recently that should have been taken back that weren't. I'm very good with library books. I always take them back on time. I always renew them. I never have any late fees or anything. But obviously as a child I wasn't a great one for not library books, just like school books that the teacher would give us to take home, textbooks and stuff that we were meant to bring back, which I clearly never did. Not because I wanted to keep them and hoard them and use them again. I was just obviously very forgetful in that department. Number 4, your favourite word. My favourite word to say is feelers. Like a bug would have the antennae, like what we would call antennae, like not formally, would be feelers. I don't know if that's a thing in another country, but like feelers. I just love the way it feels to say it. Like the way it like feels in your mouth. As to word sounds, I don't really have a favourite. Our accent isn't particularly nice in the way it pronounces words, I don't think, so I don't have like a favourite sound to hear, but I love saying the word feelers, but it doesn't come up in conversation a lot, shockingly. Number 5, 3 weird things that you are afraid of. I am terrified of sharks, like really, really scared of sharks. I don't have any need to be afraid of sharks, I know that, and I'm also so fascinated by them. Like any book on sharks, any documentaries, movies, anything about sharks, like I'm so interested, but also completely terrified at the same time. As someone who only learnt to really ride a bike as an adult, going downhill on a bike terrifies me. Like, it's so silly. even like the slightest incline, like I really panic. I don't know if that is maybe, you know, I'm not very comfortable on a bike and that's why I didn't learn as a child, or whether I'm not comfortable because I didn't learn as a child. I'm not sure which caused the other. I'm not comfortable on a bike, really, full stop, but especially down hills, like I really panic, which is a silly thing to be afraid of. And the only other thing I can think of isn't really silly. I'm terrified of old age. I am not looking forward to getting old. And I'm not talking old like 40. I'm talking old like 90. I've watched a lot of people in my life get to the point where old age is almost a horrible disease within itself. And that is not something that I am looking forward to at all. But I guess it's not really an irrational fear, in my opinion. Number 6, your favourite book when you were at school. I was a great reader as a child, like a young child, but I don't really necessarily remember the specific books or like one that stands out. As like a teenager, the only books I really read were the series of the Unfortunate Events series. I read them all when they came out. Like I waited for the next one to come out. You know, I would go and get it as soon as it was released and stuff. So I suppose for me that would have to be like my favourite, I guess, because I was really invested and interested in the series. 7, what have your interactions with police been like? I'm not sure where this question came from or where it fits into the tag, but we'll answer it anyway. For yous out there who don't maybe know the history of Northern Ireland, Northern Irish Troubles is worth a couple of minutes of Google. There is a lot of contention, violence and turmoil in this country. So although I have not had a lot of very negative experiences with the police, I've never been arrested or anything, we are constantly, there's loads of, especially I live in the capital, so there's constantly bomb scares, threats made, tip-offs, and you're constantly on your way in and out and around the city stopped by police checks, your car is searched and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's kind of my experience with the police, is just police searches, which are everywhere here. Sometimes they'll stop every car, sometimes they will stop every 5 cars, or just cars that look suspicious to them, and they search underneath you for bombs and your boot and all sorts. So I guess that's not necessarily negative, but it's not necessarily pleasant either. But when you live here, it's just part of everyday life, and I don't really think of it as any different. 8, your favourite book cover. Hold on to and get it. I don't really go, like, I think, I see book covers and I think, oh, that's really nice, but I'm not really like a cover by person, and it's not necessarily like, even though I go, oh, it's really nice, I wouldn't really put it as my favourite or rank them, but this is one that I particularly like. The Princess and the Goblin, by George MacDonald, and this is one of my favourite books of all time, and this edition particularly. I really like all the little goblin creatures on the cover. I think it's super cute. I actually have 2 copies of this book because this was the one I had first and it is falling apart. It's really old, so I got the same edition again, but in a fresher copy so that I can actually read it. So I guess if I own 2 of the same, then I must like it. So I'm going to put that as my favourite. How many places have you lived? This is the last one. Again, not really sure how it's related to the library, but I'll answer it for you guys anyway. I have not lived in like a very big area. I guess from like 40 miles kind of would take you from any of my house to any of my other houses max. But I've lived in 5 different houses, which isn't a lot. And especially when you take into consideration like 40, probably not even 40 miles. From where my parents are living now, which I lived there for a very short time with them, to where I'm living now, is like probably the furthest difference, and it's like a half an hour to a 40-minute drive, which I would say is about 30 something miles. So yeah, not a very big difference. I'm kind of in the same area I've always been, but I've lived in 5 different houses. And the last question is to tag some people. I don't know who has and hasn't done this, yada yada yada. So I'm just going to say, if you see this and think it's interesting, like I did, I wasn't tagged, go ahead and do it and have fun. And I would be interested if you guys do end up doing it to leave the links in the comments. I'll be interested to find out some of these, answer your favourite books and your kind of library stories and things about you guys as well. So that is it for today. I hope you're all happy, I hope you're all healthy, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!